Hello, and welcome to the Distillery. I'm your host, Harry Li Shanglun. I'm streaming to you from the lands of the people of the Kulin Nations. We have a special guest today, Arika Onus. Hi, Arika. How are you doing?
Hey, how you going?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Arika is a Gunditjmara and Gunnai non-binary mother, is involved in a whole range of community activism, organizing activations, and is also an artist, curator, working in the realms of photography, moving image, projection, and installation. And I'm really excited to talk to you about a lot of these different things. So maybe I'll start off with asking, what is your artistic practice?
My artistic practice stems from photography, and it's slowly moved through projection installation and moving image through to video. They're my main disciplinaries at the moment.
And what do you like to make art about?
My art is usually related to or speaks to the history of my family's war resistance from first contact to now. So it's talking about the types of resistance that my families through generations have stories in. So we have my people down in Gunditjmara Nation. We've got the Yumarella War, which is a long-standing war on the frontier wars of around Portland and Warrnambool and the Western districts, and a lot of those wars that were fought over a long time. Very interesting, and I guess it's it comes right, that I'm a survivor of those battles that have been fought through each generation. Different types of wars, different battles, and I'm also speaking to the battles that our people have today in this age, and also speaking to the future of our peoples and my bloodlines.
So this is interesting because you are using art across many different media to tell the story of your family, of generations of war and resistance. How do you think that art reflects that or hopes for better futures? Is there a role in creating a new future through the art, or is it more about reflecting the reality of what's happened?
I guess it's both. And it's also imagining a future as well, and projecting a Black future. But with that has to come with the acknowledgements of the stories of the Black history.
And you're part of a group thinking about the word imagining futures, and Black futures in particular, called the Black Imagining Abolition Collective, as well as you're a former organizer of the Warriors of the Aboriginal Resistance of 7 years, which is a huge amount of time. Can you tell me more about your work in activism and community organizing?
Yes, I guess it's something that I've been born into. Both sides of my family, through my mother and my father's sides of the family, were very strong in activism and activating community and being very present with the community. Come from very strong families, and I guess I owe everything to that, to my bloodlines that I come from, and to the people that have nurtured me to this point. and into the future. Yeah.
And so being born into activism and activation and resistance, what kind of tools do you find you have at your disposal?
I guess it's community connection. It's a very important, I guess it's something that I've been born with, a way of connecting to community, my family, and yeah, I guess there's some things that just can't be learnt, and I know that it's come through the fact that I've come through strong bloodlines that have been very connected to their people and their home and each other, and also made strong connections to other mob nationally and internationally, which has kept that flow of being connected. It's a very important foundation. Yeah. I do have to say that also, I know that we started this video, I mean, not started the video, but we started again, but I just wanted to, and it's never too late to, and I want to also express that to others that, you know, it's very important to acknowledge country, and I want to acknowledge Wurundjeri country and Boonwurrung country that I live and work on, and have been born on, and had the privilege to continue to be here. I want to pay my respects to, you know, the country and the people who are my neighbours, and pay my respects to elders who I have had the privilege of being brought up by in and around Melbourne, and I just want to pay my respects to those elders past, you know, present and future. But particularly I want to pay respects to my grandmother, Alma Thorpe, who's still here with us today, who has been the greatest inspiration to myself in the work that I do.
I think that when talking about the critical role of community connection and acknowledgement of bloodline and place to the work that you are doing and to the imagining of Black futures, definitely never too late for an acknowledgement. I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders of the people of the Kulins Nations, Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung peoples, on whose land I live, work, and play, as well as to the elders of the Gunditjmara and Gunnai people, considering that is your bloodline.
Thank you.
And yeah, thinking about acknowledgement and thinking about living on country, for somebody who is, I don't describe myself as an activist, and I think a lot of people are in my position where we see work that is being done to organize, to mobilize, to affect change, and it's like there's a particular sensation of, oh, I would love to be able to help or do something there, but not being born into it or being a visitor, it feels sometimes like trespassing. Do you have any thoughts on, I guess, your position from somebody who's been doing this all of their life?
I don't know what to say to that. Yeah, it is it's a privilege, but it is also yeah, it's a privilege to be able to be born into a well yeah, to be born into this community who've been able to love and nurture mobs from all over the country and all over the world, really. And I think that's what I love about my people and the community, the Koori community in Melbourne, so-called Melbourne, have really, it's really obvious that's something that's been different in Melbourne as opposed to other cities that I know, is that early days, a lot of mob had come to Melbourne to seek refuge and to, became a part of the community here. And it's, you know, we've worked in solidarity with each other, acknowledging that we've come far and wide. And but I think the main point to what I'm saying is that we've been able to love and nurture each other in a way that holds everybody in a certain position. And yeah, I think that's an important role for myself, is to continue that work that my families have been doing for generations. Yeah, and that has, you know, that's been, that's talking about, you know, some of the most oppressed peoples in the country, my family, my peoples. And, you know, I think that's what I love about our story of oppression, is that we have so much love and care for one another. And yeah, I just think that's a beautiful story within itself. Yeah.
It's incredibly encouraging to see the love and joy and energy that comes out of, as you point out, some of the most oppressed peoples, people who are living in a post-apocalypse. The energy that's put into organizations such as the Warriors of the Aboriginal Resistance, of the Blackfellas COVID-19 Support and Assistance Mutual Aid Group, it feels like it stems from a desire for genuine care of that community.
Yeah, I guess that's exactly right. With yeah, I guess Blackfellas COVID Support and Assistance. I literally was, I had set the page up, the group up, whilst I was homeless. My second week of being homeless in the midst of the first lockdown in March. And yeah, I literally used, was living in a motel, and I used the motel Wi-Fi to set the group up. And I had a car accident the same day. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on, but I was determined to make sure that this group was set up, as there was a great need for it. And I hadn't seen anybody else putting anything together at that time. And there were other people that I had been in conversation with, friends that had set up similar groups, mutual aid groups, who'd help me with the admin. And I had other community members who had also got behind that. So there was a real community effort, grassroots effort, that pushed that together to make it happen. But it did not happen under very privileged or easy circumstances at all. And I think that's really important to acknowledge the story behind how the group was established. It's been established and run under great pressure and struggle, and every person that's had a hand in volunteering their time have had their own deep struggles, and that's an important thing to also acknowledge, that the volunteers themselves have pushed through their own struggles to assist and support other peoples in the community, and that's that it shows amazing strength within these peoples. And I feel privileged to have worked along such strong peoples, and continue to meet very strong people who are just had their hands or their arms open wide, even though we're communicating over screens and phones. The arms are still open, and it's people just want to care and love and show their support, and it's that's where it counts, is that it's I think that's all that this group, which is a private group for Blackfellas only, for mob only, it's provided this safe space for our people to be able to call out for support and assistance, either on the group page or through our assistance form, which is it's provide an anonymous space as well to for that request.
I think what's really struck me is that so often the effective response to this great tragedy and difficult situation, COVID-19 disproportionately affecting marginalized people, that the effective response has not come from a position of power, and it's not come from a hugely resourced place. It's communities who, without many access to resources or without power, has managed to actually make a difference. And that's really, I mean, in one sense, very saddening, but on the other sense, I acknowledge and celebrate that in the resilience that it demonstrates.
Yeah. Look, it is, there's some gaps in the services across the country in all different realms, and we know that there's a great need for service, and some people, I believe that people should just have an option of services, and I think that's what the mutual aid group is to be able to have multiple options for people to access if they wish to have be supported and assisted by our group, then that's an option. Then they can do that. But I think it's important for people to have options, and that's the main point. And there's some things that we can't provide that obviously organisations can provide. I think what we do differently is that we do a very interpersonal care system where we're trying to keep in contact with the people that have requested assistance, and we're making sure that they feel cared for, and that's the main aspect, that it's interpersonal, and it's people are feeling cared for, because it's not necessarily the material aid, it's not the everything, it's also the emotional support and the care factor that people want, particularly through these uncertain times. I think that's very important.
It's I mean, also only possible when you are seeing communities as individuals, as people, something that larger systems maybe have difficulty doing, but from a place of empathy. I mean, you mentioned that you were homeless during that first lockdown, which must have been really difficult. and need. That is, you created the support, the mutual aid group. It's kind of this, this needs to exist, but also experience in that you've been an organizer for so long that you knew how to do that and to set it up effectively. Which is, I would love to ask you about, I guess, this length of time that you've been involved, organizing for several years for all of your life. Do you get burnt out? Is that really tough to sustain the level of energy required for resistance?
I'm not even sure if I've been operating on burnout or like whether I know what it's like not to be burnt out or if that's just the normal thing.
Oh no.
I can't figure it out because I am a workaholic, so I love working. I work 24/7. I love like the weekends. I work at night. I work when most people aren't working. So, and the type of work that I do is unpaid work, but I love it. No one could actually pay me to do what I do. And that's why I think I love it so much, is because it's untouchable in that sense that I'm doing it because I want to do it, not because I have a job contract that says I have to fulfill a certain criteria and have outcomes of certain types. I'm led by the community, so I'm in contact with the community, particularly my aunties, who I definitely have to give a shout out to, who have kept me in line and reminded me of so many things and grounded me throughout my whole life, but also just reminded me what's needed in the community, because the aunties in our community are the ones who are really doing the hard work, particularly the grandmothers who are raising their grandchildren. I want to give special acknowledgement to those strong, staunch grandmothers in my community who are, and all communities across the country who are doing the real hard work. And that's I have to really say that I've that the work that they do is unpaid work, and that is it's out of love and care, and it's underrated, and it's definitely not as respected as it should be. These people are the real I don't know, trailblazers in activating community, because they're raising the next generation. Sorry, I get emotional when I think about the grandmothers who have done a lot of hard work and continue just to keep on keeping on, and they help so many other people in the community as well. They're not just raising their grandchildren, they're raising other people, and they're the go-to people for a lot of our community.
It's absolutely incredible, and it's something that has actually been raised in previous episodes of the Distillery. I was chatting with Sam Moody, and he mentioned that the grandmothers in the Northern Territory are the community pillars. I was chatting with Ida Kubashevsky and Claudia Riseborough, and they mentioned that traditionally women's work is devalued, and that labor is not considered real. And so all of these ideas are really, I think, very evident, and we should absolutely acknowledge and celebrate grandmothers across the country working for communities.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'd love to ask one last question, which maybe is a big one. What does sovereignty mean to you?
Sovereignty means the true and honest law holders of a particular land and waters and sky. Yeah.
I really like that formulation. So the true law holders, which is a nice distinction from so-called Australia, an illegal nation. What are the consequences of this definition of sovereignty?
There's responsibility in claiming sovereignty over a particular land, water, or sky, and it's not just a tagline that some people, I guess, take it up to be. There's a responsibility that holds you in place and that holds you responsible for those areas that you are claiming to belong to, and or claiming to be belonging of, more so. If you claim to be belonging of, you have a responsibility to that totem, to that land, to that water, or to that sky. And yeah, there's great responsibilities that I think between that nations or that nationhood needs to happen, and these conversations are happening throughout the country, but there needs to be more spaces being provided that are, I believe, that are free of government hold, meaning not government funded, and yeah, that's something that's I guess some people are working towards. But for me, it's about having a responsibility to protect those places, and those places hold stories, and those places hold a DNA connection that is time immemorial. It's irreplaceable, and it is.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, and it's an evolving thing too. It's not stagnant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful conception of, I guess, a future that we can have where whoever is claiming sovereignty also accepts that responsibility and takes it very seriously. And I guess, like, just that interrogation of the notion of responsibility to totem and of nationhood is part of the desire of Reconstruction to think in tribes and different countries, as opposed to a pan-Aboriginal voice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not one Blackfella that I know in this country that likes being spoken for, and doesn't allow anyone to speak on their behalf or their country that they are belonging to. It does not fit that way. It is against our law. It's against the sovereign concept of law, and that's that responsibility. That's upholding that responsibility as well, is to be respectful of that responsibility. Respecting sovereignty is to know not to speak on another's behalf. And being homogenized in this country has caused a lot of issues. and it's caused a lot of wars amongst peoples. But the peoples that have stuck true to that law of belonging to have known that they not to step into those homogenized roles of speaking for other peoples and speaking on other people's country without or not speaking on other people's country, but I guess speaking on or for other people's country is not when in regards to country and law. It's very it's not really that complex. It's just, you know, you don't walk into someone's house and decide to change their furniture around and throw, you know, their things out and start to make it your own. That's just a modern day metaphor that makes people connect to what we're talking about and feel we're feeling. Yeah, it's a very colonized metaphor concept way of thinking, but unfortunately that is the language that we have to use to get our message across to those who are finding it hard to understand.
Right. And it's I mean, yeah, using language of colonizers to and imagery and metaphors derived from our modern world is one of those things that feels like a necessary evil or something, or like, you know, it must be very hard inviting people into the thinking and space that sovereignty implies when it's not what this you know, so-called Australia promotes or thinks about itself when thinking about like what national values it has or what language we think in. Anyway, yeah. There's so much that I could ask more and chat more about, but unfortunately we've reached the end of our episode time. Arika, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Wuru.
Thank you everyone for tuning in to The Distillery. I'm your host, Harry Lee Shanglun, and we have other episodes available online, so you can check them out at distillery.site and follow the Instagram at distillery.site and Twitter at distillery_site. New episodes come by regularly, so do check it out. Take care, everyone.